You can get performance when you run on fear, but at a
Hmm.
certain point, it becomes self-defeating.
Welcome to Confessions of an Implementer. I'm your host, Ryan Hogan. We share unique stories of EOS implementers and the companies they've transformed to give you a rare glimpse into the successes and challenges of the system in action. Let's jump in. So, Lynda, you're an OG. There's a lot of people inside of the EOS ecosystem, and how many people? 2013, like how many people were around back in that day?
I think I was number 62 or something like that. Or there were 60 people in the room when
Yeah.
in those days, Gino and Don were the boot camp instructors, and you were at Gino's session room north of the city, had to drive in the snow. That was the real test because I'm from Atlanta.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I had to stand up in front of a room of 60 implementers and tell my story.
That's wild.
Yeah.
60. That reminds me. Um, it, Walt Brown. He claims he's number two or something. I bet she's in the same cohort. What do you remember? Do you know Margaret Dixon by
Of
chance?
course. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! I don't know if I told you this when you and I first connected a couple months ago, but she was my implementer at Hunt a Killer. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
so I knew she was kind of around a similar share, and she would always share these funny stories about Gino, and it was like with love and respect. Like he would always start with love and respect, and then
With
there was
all,
just
no, with all due love and respect,
that's,
you suck, or something like that. Yes.
it,
Yes.
she said every time that line came, like just brace
Brace
yourself for what.
yourself. That's right. That's right.
So, how did you find out about EOS so early?
It's, I had been doing business coaching and consulting since the mid 90s for small businesses. Had that, I had a history before that, of course, but I joined as the concept of coaching and consulting small to mid-sized businesses got rolling. Because when I first started, it was like, you do what? I joined a business coaching alliance of kind of senior coaches that had been at it a while, and that was in the early 2000s or the early 10s, and I had been with them, yeah, 5 years when somebody posted the VTO on our that we had a community where you could share stuff that you had the licensing for on
Hmm.
LinkedIn. That's in the days when that was the group. That
Yep.
was your group, was LinkedIn. And this person shared the VTO, but I didn't know that's what it was. I thought it was something he had invented because he said, here's this cool thing that I really love that I got out of reading a book called Traction. And here's a 2-page instructions. And it was August. And so I used that all the rest of the year to plan with my existing business clients. And after Christmas, I thought, I should read the book. It sounds like a good book. So I read the book and I got about 5 pages in and I went, oh, he totally stole this. Okay. Well, there's a website. Oh, you can do this. So I called, I got Don. We had a couple of conversations in January. I was doing a big presentation at our the Coaches Council Alliance in February. I was doing it down in Florida, and a colleague and I were rolling out an automated assessment for businesses to take about, do you have what you need to succeed as a business?
Hmm.
Essentially, an organizational checkup.
Yep.
Uh, And so I was really busy doing that, and Don and I had our interview, and I was like, this sounds wonderful. And they accepted me, and I was so excited. And then I said, I'll come in August. And he called me back a couple days later, and he said, we've had 2 people drop out of February because of health issues. it's going to be more expensive in August. You'll get a discount if you come in February, essentially. And I was like, fine, I'll come in February. So I came home on Monday from Orlando. All weekend, I was slipping out of meetings to memorize my 90, and then dumped the suitcase from the Orlando clothes, put in what winter clothes I had, and off I went to Detroit. I was just like, I am nuts.
It obviously spoke to you, because
Yeah,
all those
yeah,
years of business consulting, and for you to like not throw everything out, but like adopt a framework off of a book and then literally accelerates, like there was something there.
yeah. I had, before I chose the alliance that I was with, I had researched, literally, I had looked at 350 different licensing and school programs, because by that point there were a lot of graduate degree programs in entrepreneurship that had not been available when I started. And my mentor had, pretty much used a framework based on E-Myth book. And I have a master's in organizational design and human resources development, which is organizational design, development, motivation, training. So I was familiar with a lot of business models and had struggled for years with, you read Lee Iacocca's book on how he turned around Chrysler, and you get one little bitty piece that is applicable to your clients.
Yep.
And I was really sick of that. When I read Traction, I was just like, oh, this is what I've been trying to do. I had a big notebook that I used that was from my mentor when I went out on my own. She allowed me to keep using it. And I never went through it in order. It was always just this kind of mess. And his simple, elegant way, I was like, I never have to make a new notebook again. I never have to make a business plan construct again. I tried all bunches of different kinds. So I had a lot of background. That book, and then I had my own businesses. I had been part of family businesses. I was like, I wish, like so many implementers, I wish I'd had this when I had my businesses. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it was like a thunderbolt.
What's so interesting, like you just talked about the master's degree that you have and the experience that you have. And I don't have a master's. I went through business school, but I took a lot of classes in organizations and leadership and management. And I'm not saying one book can replace an entire education, but it's so interesting listening to you and my experiences with this. And it's like, it's so simple. Like you don't have to go 4 years or 2 years through school to understand like how to bring these simple concepts and just tie them all together.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you said organizational design, my mind immediately goes to like the architecture of the company, meaning like, and for some reason my mind immediately goes to organizational, the org chart. In
Mm-hmm.
EOS terms, it'd be the accountability chart. What goes into that? Because I'm sure that's like one piece of it. Like, what are some of those like core fundamental pieces to organizational design?
I think the field of organizational design came out of places like, General Motors and huge places. And so it's basically the accountability chart is the essence of good organizational design. Now, there are other pieces that are organizational, psychology and development,
Hmm.
because you need it to give people space to bring what we like to call in HR their discretionary effort. You want them bringing more and more of themselves. And organizational design and development pulls in some of that adult learning theory, um, adult motivational psychology. How do you get away from what we now call quiet quitting?
Mm-hmm.
And the early models were based on this guy named Taylor who did, experiments with people working on assembly lines and finding out that simple changes like improving the lighting or giving them something to stand on would up their productivity because they felt cared for. but he was still very much about, let's make this efficient. And, one person is doing this all day, the other person's doing this all day. And then later they started, the field kind of moved on and said, let's admit that you cannot have human beings check their emotions at the door.
Hmm.
It sounds kind of weird now, but that really was the thinking. And this kind of command and control, a lot of the big corporations in the 50s came out of the military, their
Yep.
founders. And so there was a very top-down command and control efficiency model. And it wasn't until later that, we began to realize that you need to motivate. People need more motivation than I did a good job and nobody yelled at me.
And do you think that that was because I've seen the evolution in the military? So I've been in the Navy for the last 25 years,
Oh,
and
yeah.
even in the early 2000s, like it was yelling and screaming. It wasn't ask why. It was like do this now. And even the military has evolved quite a bit over the last couple of decades. And I can't speak to what it was like in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but I'm assuming there's been this constant evolution. Do you think that this is innate? And what I mean by that is, have humans always needed the why or needed the care, and it was just never there, therefore humans weren't reaching their maximum potential until we started to figure out these unlocks? Or do you think like the culture has shifted, and they were reaching their maximum potential before, but there's a new way to do it today?
I would say that you can go back tens of thousands of years. So one of my little nerdy hobbies is Neolithic history.
Hmm.
Um, and part of it comes from wanting to understand how did early humans think. But before I got really into Neolithic history, I was all about archaeology and Egyptian archaeology. And I don't think humans have changed that much.
Hmm.
And, even Darwin said towards the end of his life that people took what he said in Origin of the Species a little too far. It's not survival of the strongest and fittest, it's survival of the most cooperative. And some neo-Darwinists have gone so far as to say it's actually survival of the most convivial.
Wow.
And so I think, there are some people that are motivated by being yelled at. There, we have a range of EOS implementers, right? I'm less the yell at you get in your face, and I'm just more the, I call myself the wise cool grandma, just like, let's talk about this. I mean,
Yep.
it's no BS empathy, but it's still empathetic because that's what humans respond to connection. And part of what Taylor and his ilk discovered was that you can get performance when you run on fear, but at a
Hmm.
certain point, it becomes self-defeating. And if you are in an environment where you need that discretionary effort, you need people who are excited, who are looking for innovation, who are not just trying to get through the day and get out of there. If you need that, then a fear-laden environment is not going to work. People aren't going to bring their best selves. I would even argue that this next iteration, and we're seeing this more and more with the whole purpose movement, right? That bringing your soul to work, however you define that, I think we talked about this when we talked a few months ago, that creating an environment where the founder gets to see their soul's purpose come into this earth reality, and then their team gets to, and then all their employees get to. That's radical. And what would that look like? What would it look like if that's how we were solving problems? abundance mentality versus I got to get mine, and you know, I'm going to hit you with a spear if you get close to my fire.
What it sounds like is like there's this like translation across, or maybe transformation across the organization. Like once that environment's created where the entire team can bring their full kind of human self into the organization, when you're coaching, or when you're talking to leaders and founders and CEOs, my take is that at least to some degree there's still some skepticism there, meaning that it's like people come in, they do their work, and they go home, and what do they get for their effort? They get a paycheck. And I've heard that quite a bit. So
Yeah.
how do you combat that, of like there's more to this, and like this is the type of environment that you need to create?
First of all, one of the things I've learned over 30 plus years of coaching is that there are some people that I'm going to bang their heads together a few times. I might bang my own head against them a few times, but if they're not going to see it, they've got to come to it themselves. One of the great things about the EOS structure, though, is that, it's built into we're doing the check-ins with every meeting. You're getting to see the human side. You'll have people in a leadership team meeting who don't believe in that. They don't believe in tens, and they don't believe in sharing personal information. But as time rolls on, and you can sometimes tangibly feel it in the room, how the
Hmm.
team is getting closer and closer. And the day comes when that person has some small snippet to share. Well, as they see that roll out through the organization, you can see the teams get more effective.
Yep.
I mean, there's other things supporting that, but even if you're agreeing on processes, you're agreeing on roles on the accountability chart, you're agreeing on what's important on the scorecard on your team, all those things build teammanship. You
Yep.
begin to recognize you work as a team better than you work by yourself. And the human connection helps the team function better.
Do you ever think about organizations that are incredibly successful that might be missing pieces of this? And
Hmm.
Apple, for instance, like, for all the rumors and the things that we've read, and the biographies, like, Steve Jobs was a pain in the ass to work with, and it sounds like it was like very much a screaming mentality: get out of my office, bring me a solution, those types of things. Like, how do some organizations find incredible success when it sounds, at least from the outside looking in, and obviously, I wasn't in those types of rooms, but how do organizations like that seem to not, I won't say care about the humans, because I'm sure they cared, but they've created a different environment, and they've been incredibly successful?
Well, I mean, EOS started that way.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, Gino is not known for being, he's a wonderful human being, and a hug from him is great, but he was yelling on the stage just last week, so it and I mean other Amazon, IBM, I mean lots of great organizations take a much more harsh approach than what I'm talking about. My experience of it is that that appeals to certain stripes of people. The staffing company I mentioned to you was very top down and attracted I mean, amazingly bright, hardworking, innovative people. That was the joy part of working there. But the changing on a dime because the top guy said so was enormously painful, because then you had 1,500 people crashing into each other trying to figure out wait, weren't we going this way? No, now we're what? You know? And it was just like, well, buckle up, buttercup, and get over it and do it and work your 60, 70 hours. And oh, yeah, by the way, the divorce rate in the Atlanta region's 60, 70%. Yeah. So what? Well, Okay. I think, if you look at Lencioni's pyramid, I often say, the bottom is trust, the top is results, and all the places in between. But we always say you can get results. You can be a 10 in results and a 5 in trust. It's
Hmm.
just going to take a lot more energy and be a lot more painful. So it's not that you can't do it.
Yep.
It's that it's going to take a longer time and be a lot more painful. I
Do
don't
you
think there's anybody that's worked for Apple that would say there wasn't some pain involved.
yeah. Uh, it- do you think that there's a right way and a wrong way, or do you think it's like certain cultures attract certain people, and like that's what they need, versus some of these other things that I don't think they're taboo anymore. So just to be clear,
Right,
like
right.
these are very real. There's data points against them. So like everything that you know and everything that you've learned and everything that you see, like, do you look at this through the lens of right and wrong, or do you look at the lens
Mm.
of everything's different, or different companies have different things?
So I've been married to a psychotherapist for 35 years,
Oh,
and he calls it growing edges. We all have our growing edges. My growing edge is different than yours. And so somebody who it wants to work in that high energy, climb the mountain and jump out of a helicopter and ski down the mountain, which I would love to do. I'm just not built to do that. But it it attracts different people. It's for different people. It's the same to me. It's the same argument we have over um, what religion should you be in? Oh, mine, because mine is the one that's right and yours is wrong. I don't have that kind of um, direct pipeline to know the answer, what's right for you.
yeah.
All I can do is say, here's a system that works for you, that works for a lot of people, and we can talk about different ways to apply it. You know, I'm not I'm not afraid of the yelling. I'm not afraid of command and control. I just don't see it work as well.
Are you seeing nowadays? Because when we talk about command and control, and I did this deep dive at War College on um, uh, centralized command and decentralized command, and if you look at the history of the Navy, we used to give orders to captains who were in DC, and they would get on their horses and they would go down to Portsmouth. They would have their orders. They would get on the ship and they would go do it. And you would not know if it was mission accomplished for like 10 months before they got back. And very, very decentralized. Here's your orders, go do it, come back when they're done. And today, one of the most famous missions that we've had over probably the last 15 years, the president of the United States was watching it unfold and was tapped in like right to the headphones. And like, that's about as centralized as you can get. What's your philosophy on those now, as far as like, should organizations think through how do we become like decentralized, where authority and accountability and all of these things are pushed as deep inside of the organization as possible? How do you think through that?
I did a lot of study of Duran and Deming when I was in the staffing company, because we were trying to see how do you get a large contingent of staffing people that goes into like Nike in their busy season in their warehouse in Memphis. You're plopping 250 people down in an organization that has 75 people. And you cannot give authority. How much authority can you give? This is a very small example, but I think it speaks to it, that how can you give authority to a temporary employee in that setting? And it's very fast paced and productivity is essential. And it boils down to a dynamic balance. We see organizations over their lifetimes centralized, decentralized, centralized, decentralized. What Duran and Deming found was that if you can push decision making down as close to the decision as possible, and give people the education and tools they need to make that decision, it works better. Things get done faster, things get done more effectively. And the communication going up and down the chain and sideways has to also be very clear, because if central doesn't know what's going on or loses control or isn't even aware of what's happening out there, then the company goes off the rails. So again, the miracle of EOS is that when you do it properly, authority is pushed down as close to the line as you can get it, and communication is open back and forth.
Can I give you a hypothetical?
Sure.
So I guess the ultimate question is going to be, should leaders be coaching their team to process decisions and make decisions in the way in which they could, or should they be giving them the tools, the like external education and professional development to make different decisions? And the situation that I have found myself in quite a few times would be a wrong decision was made. It would not have been the decision that I would have made. And I understand there's the whole, like, did we get 80% there, and all of those different things. One of the problems that I've had in the past, though, is like it was kind of the same decision that was being made, and it's like it was bad for the organization. And so what I've done throughout those types of things is, like, I would coach them into, like, how I would have made the decision, and these are kind of the data points I would have used. What's your philosophy on that? Like should leaders be coaching and training people to make decisions the same way they would, or should we be providing them an enormous amount of resources to make better decisions than we ever could?
Again, I don't think it's an either or.
Hmm.
It's got to be both and, especially now where so much information is available at people's fingertips. It used to be easier to centralize things because you would have had data that they had no access to. Now they're probably going to have access to more data than you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to end up coaching specifically to a situation where they messed up and cost you money. That's always, always hard. Hopefully it's not too much money or too many customers, but it's like any coaching. I was a gymnastics coach, so I'm more used to the kind of one-on-one coaching versus the team coaching. But you see it in football and basketball and any team coaching where, yeah, that communication on the floor was not good. And that's not how we practiced it. And yeah, things went awry. So now, how could we have handled that better? What happened? Oh, your adrenaline got the better of you. It was the Super Bowl. I get it. But it, as the elder in the room, so to speak, you're coaching them through experience and hopefully giving them the benefits of your experience. But I don't know about you, but I remember a time in my life when somebody who had been there before gave me the advantage of their wisdom, and I went, yeah, I hear you. And
I've never done that. Never
good,
in my life.
good. Well,
I'm just
see,
kidding.
so yeah, this
Just
is
kidding.
foreign to you. I get it. So we're dealing with humans who are younger to whatever it is you're teaching them than you are, and in the current setting. And I think our elders felt this way too. We had access to a lot more knowledge than they did. Well, now it's exponential. And yes, I have read the AI thing that just went around and shook the stock market, but it'll shake you. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how we're going to answer that same question when they know more than we do, because they spent a day using AI in a way that I have yet to be able to imagine. So again, I always think it's both and the better the conversation, the better the communication, the less likely something's going to go off the rails.
All right, quick break, friends. Do you find it impossible to hire and retain top sales talent? Or worse, are you paying insane recruiter fees who are all using outdated hiring processes? Yeah, I was too. At Hunt to Killer, we were spending hundreds of thousands on recruiter agency fees. And after I sold that company in 2025, I started Talent Harbor. And the whole vision here was to make sales recruiting accessible to small and medium-sized businesses, because the organizations that can hire and retain world-class people are the ones that ultimately win. Most organizations rely on things like ZipRecruiter or LinkedIn, and they get hundreds, if not thousands, of resumes. But we find that the best salespeople are already perfectly placed somewhere else. And that's why our approach is to go after them. And we do that through a business model called recruiting as a service. We do not charge commissions. We do not have success fees. We don't have contracts. We don't have long-term engagements. And we become an extension of your team as expert sales recruiters. If you're tired of the same old recruiters and want to actually grow your sales team, check us out at talentharbor.com. That's Talent Harbor, TALENTHARBOR.com. Let's get your next sales superstar hired. How do you break through that barrier? The barrier of like, do what I say, not what I do. And like, you know, this is what I would have done. And so next time I expect you to do it the same way. Like, how can leaders think through like what clear, concise, and maybe it's influence, but like the right type of communication to achieve whatever that outcome is?
Hmm. That's a really good question. I mean, first of all, I'm not a fan of 5 ways to blah blah. You know,
Hmm.
do these 5 things and you will achieve enlightenment and grace and wealth next weekend. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think there's a magic formula other than ask good questions and listen and be clear about your expectations.
As a note, because now I'm reflecting on something I did a couple weeks ago. I'm like, I should have asked better questions. Um, Huge. when you're thinking about like those decisions and pushing decisions like as far down the organization as possible, how should leaders be thinking about like that threshold of decisions, you know, when they're trying to think through like this decision, these types of decisions need to remain with me. And you know, in finance I think it's very easy. It's like, is the expense X, then like it's this
Mm-hmm.
level of approval, is it
Mm-hmm.
this? When you think through things that don't have that clear cut, like what should leaders be asking themselves as far as like, oh, do I delegate this decision or do I not?
I'm thinking about a client that delegated a marketing decision that became a sales presentation before he got his arms around what was going on and lost a big prospect.
Hmm.
Um, Again, I think it's being clear. Here's where being clear about the why, even though it sounds like you're losing control, is so important because I'm not sure when we got down to the root of it, the person who had developed the marketing passed it on to sales, trying to move at speed, right? Trying to, hadn't really slowed down enough themselves to understand the why of what they were doing, the why of the marketing shift. Why are we presenting it this way? And this is in um, an environment that's highly technology, so much is changing so fast that keeping those lines of communication open is even more important. And in a way, it's almost like the visionary and the integrator have to be more on the same page and be doing some of those skip level meetings, because if the technology genius is near the top and people lower down are making these decisions, you've got to have this ability to question not only you as the top leader, but to really be feeding that into the DNA of the organization. Everybody slow down. Yes, we need to go fast, but everybody slow down. Ask a question. If you don't know the why, make me explain it to you. And I think one of the hardest things for us as leaders is to understand our expectations in a way that we can explain it.
Hmm.
It's clear to me. I do this little thing where I say, Ryan, imagine I just gave you an egg.
Mhm.
Okay. I want you to take care of this egg. All right. Will you take care of this egg for me? That's all I
Yes.
want you to do. All right. I come back the next day. So, Ryan, what'd you do with the egg?
Put it in the sock drawer because it's safe there.
In the sock drawer.
Mhm.
That's better than what some people have done, which is they ate it. That what I meant by take care of it, Ryan, was to put it in an incubator because
Mm.
this is a highly valuable, unique strain of chicken that we want to raise to break into a new market. And now that it's been in the sock drawer, I'm not sure it's gotten the heat it needed, and it may have died. Well, how clear was I with the expectations? Take care of an egg.
Yep.
You know, you're like, don't crack it.
That's all I thought about. Well,
Yeah.
evidently, some people think it's time to eat it,
Mm-hmm.
which
Take care of it.
I
That's
threw it in
more
the
of a
trash can. What?
yeah.
I took care of it.
That's more of an organized crime thing of take care of this problem for me. But yeah.
Huh.
So we as leaders, it's obvious to us, but and it's hard for us to think through what we're not saying that we think is intuitively obvious because we've done it so many times before. We know what business we're in. We know we're in the business of producing unique, amazing chickens. Um, at least you knew enough not to refrigerate it or throw it and, cook it. But um, so, yeah,
Yeah.
so being able, as an employee, you want to take what especially if you love your boss, especially if you love what you do and you're professional at it, you want to take it and run with it. And we need to spread this kind of ask questions. The whole thing of active listening. Now, Ryan, I've given you this egg. What are you going to do with it? I told you to take care of it. What's your next step? Oh, wait a minute. Okay, we obviously we're
Yeah.
not on the
Oh,
same.
I was going to the side. No, no, don't. We're okay. We need to
Yeah,
figure this out
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
So if that happens, the egg instance, the marketing and sales instance, like I'm assuming the first, I'm not assuming that I've been through this. Like the first thing you want to do is just pull it back. You're like, okay,
Yep,
well,
yep.
now we've got a new threshold for the decision. Those decisions lie with me. You know, let's look at that sales and marketing. Like, is that an opportunity to like reevaluate, coach, and become more clear, or is that a true instance where like, hey, we need another level to this process where like before it goes to that other team, I just need a once over of it. Is that like what are the best changes as a part of that situation?
I think the immediate reaction after I'm taking this all back, if you understand that if you take it all back, the organization is never growing beyond your capacity. But then the next thing is, okay, we're going to put this next step in the process where I have to evaluate everything before it goes out. At least you're not writing it, right? That's still capacity limiting and may need to be done. But the real question, if you want to grow, especially if you want to go from like 10 million to 50 million, is what did we miss here?
Hmm.
You can I mean, I have seen processes documented within an inch of their life. And when it gets to that level, first of all, we all know nobody reads them. That's why Gina was so insistent that you keep it simple. And then the other thing is that it's like a legal contract. You know, a legal contract that's 40 pages might be better than a 2-page one. But the fact of the matter is, if you all aren't on the same page, it can be 150 pages and it's going to be a problem later on. So I'm just all in favor of, to the extent you can. I mean, this gets to that right person, right seat. Do they have the capacity to learn this? And unfortunately, there aren't any simple formulas. It's all got to be based on judgment, you
Yeah.
know. I mean, we can use all the things we have, all the tools. Ultimately, it's you looking at this person and going, do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity?
That's one thing that I've run into quite a few times. So my last company, Hunt Killer, we scaled from 0 to 55 million in 5 years. And that was because I was in a visit. My first company bankrupted. Learned some very painful lessons there. So first thing I did was I joined a Vistage group, and then next thing I know, Dan Wallace, or this gentleman named Dan Wallace, is strolling through our Vistage group, handing out these orange books. Um,
Oh, I love
and
it.
yeah, um, and like every time we ran into those situations constantly, and the thing, like, fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of the decision making process there was like, we can coach them, but we don't have time, meaning that
Yeah.
like they're they're in the right seat, and like they can execute
Hmm.
on these things, but we need something, like we still need somebody between, maybe it was me or maybe it was somebody else and that person. So it's like,
Yeah.
we're going to grow them, we just don't have the time. We hire somebody over top. That person like already understands the industry and like has a higher kind of like span of what they can see into the future. And then, you know, it becomes a win-win because we have now solved that problem, and like that person is now growing because they've got the right person above them to help coach and mentor.
Absolutely. I have seen that.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's absolutely that is the ideal. Um, as long as as long as your person can get over that they're not going to have direct access to you anymore. I see that in organizations too.
100%. I had this guy. His name is Lokesh. Amazing operations manager. Um, and we went through this with Lokesh. We brought him on. We were probably a $2 million company at that point. We brought him on as VP of operations. And like as the organization scaled, it was like he had it. Like he wanted it, he got it. And it's just like none of us knew what we were doing. Like once we hit 5 and we've got like 100 SKUs and we're trying to figure out how to manage all this. Um, the only reason I bring him up is because like few and far between can people kind of navigate inside of
Hmm.
organizations and still feel like motivated and inspired and energized. He did. He's amazing. We just texted last week, but that's a really tough thing for teammates to go through.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
When you talked a little bit earlier about some of the organizational psychology and some of these other things that had been accomplished, and use the examples of like, you know, putting pads under you know, people where they're standing all day, and like other kind of unique things to make them understand, or help them understand that like the organization cares about them. Like what are some of the, if those are the tactics and then we like back that into a strategy, like what is that strategy, what is that philosophy that organizations can take to make sure that their people are coming in feeling inspired and energized and ready to give 100%?
Purpose.
Hmm.
Humans love to be part of something bigger than themselves and then treat them like adult humans. Transactional psychology talks about um, you and I are talking adult to adult. We could be talking adult to child if one of us was like, I'm going to school you, Ryan. You know, that's adult to child. And then that puts the worker in the position of being the child. And then you activate all kinds of fascinating family dynamics that you don't want in your organization. But a lot of the old school was, I'm the adult, you're the child, because I'm the boss, you're the employee.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk adult to adult, then we also have to be sure that we're being received as adult and not as parent. So helping the employees understand that they are accountable for their own professional growth. And we're going to help you with that. And if for you that means that I'm your paralegal now, but I want to go to law school, then we are going to applaud you when you leave us to go to law school, especially because we have had the experience of knowing that people that we did that for came back to be lawyers with us. Accountability chart is a great motivational tool. Here's where you can go. In your fast growing company, there were lots of places people could grow to. And that's very motivational. And then just being seen as human. Okay, your mother's dying. Now, if it's the fifth time their mother's been dying, then you gotta ask some questions. But
Yeah.
we're gonna give you some grace here. And that those quarterly conversations with the how are you doing on your core values and stuff are such a great way to keep that conversation open, because you will see someone who has been super wonderful in so many ways, and all of a sudden they're not, and it's like, what's going on here? Oh, my mother's very ill, and I just really wish I was in Tennessee with her. All right, let's see if we can get you a week away.
Yep.
That buys loyalty, but it also buys, when that person comes back, unless they're just a schmuck, and that we do have some of those in the world, but they're gonna love you forever. That's a once in a lifetime experience that you have made better.
Hmm.
So if I sum that up, it's like, give them agency over their own career development. Give them tools like the accountability chart to see their life with you, and treat them like adult humans.
The adult, it's the first time, and I'm sure this is this is a common terminology probably in psychology, like the adult to child, the adult to adult. It's the first time I've ever heard it. And
Mm.
when you think about adult to adult, is that getting into like explaining the why and bringing people along with you? Is that kind of the core of that philosophy?
Yeah. I mean, this is out of something called transactional analysis. It's a psychotherapeutic construct. Um, it goes a lot deeper, obviously, than I'm going. But yeah, I mean, it's the basic idea of, what is it? Most parents say, I'm never going to say this, and then they always do, because I told you so, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But for all the good intentions, explaining to a 2-year-old throwing a tantrum why mommy wants you to not jump on the third rail. No, no. You jerk them back and you sit them down.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes we find ourselves having to do that with safety issues, regulatory issues, even, you did what with the egg,
Yeah.
Yeah. But by and large, we want to always go back to the adult to adult.
One last thing you mentioned, and I want to see if I can tie this back to the BTO, or if this does live in the BTO. I loved what you said about purpose and this idea that people want to be a part of something larger than themselves. And for me, like, I think that's one of the reasons that I've been able to scale companies quickly is because we've never, like, Hunt to Killer, we didn't say, hey, we're creating a game. Like, we were changing the entire game industry and impacting people's lives.
Hmm.
And we had data points for that. Like, we had emails of people that were connecting that had never connected before, and they were connecting over our experience, and we would share that type of thing. Is when you
Hmm.
think about being a part of something that's larger than yourself and being able to effectively communicate this in the world of EOS, is this very simply the 10-year target? Is this the why behind the 10-year
Hmm.
target? Is it the outcome of, like, does this live inside of like the EOS framework, or does it have to be something much more grandiose?
No, it absolutely lives inside the VTO. First of all, the core values is
Mm,
very much about purpose.
yep.
And often in contrast to what people think business should be. And then same with in the core focus, the purpose, cause, or passion. It's always beyond the industry, right? It's something that motivates. I have a designer company that their passion is solving puzzles. So if they bring their kitchen, if you bring your kitchen to them, they want to solve the puzzle. What do you want to do with this kitchen? You're envisioning family gathered around the island. You're envisioning all your friends being able to come, and you're envisioning making your favorite dish. It's a puzzle. How are we going to do that in the space we have with the budget we have? They love to solve puzzles. If kitchens went away tomorrow, they'd find some other way to solve puzzles.
Yep.
So I think as a game guy, you can get that, right? You
I
know?
do. And like, it resonates as well because, like, it's translatable across anything. And we think about that all the time of, like, what we're doing and why we're doing it and things like that. And it's like, we're not stuck on the model. We're not stuck on anything in the business. Like, we're stuck on, for me personally, like, my own purpose is, like, I want to help people reach their maximum potential, or help them
Hmm.
achieve, like, their goals, personal, professional, it doesn't matter. Like, that's what I feel like my purpose here is. And that's what I focus on, is, like, my team. I'm not a recruiter, and um, I don't claim to be, but we hire incredible people and we take care of them. And that's translatable. So, like, we can compete in any industry and pivot and do anything, just as long as we're continuing to do that. And that's what it sounds like with them. It's like, take out the kitchen stuff, and now it's a roofing company, but they're still solving puzzles each day.
Right, right.
Huh.
And you see how you lit up when you started talking about how you help people.
Hmm.
That's what you're looking for. And when you're interviewing them, that's what you're looking for. Do they love what we love?
Okay. Lynda, this has been incredible. I don't think I've ever gotten in, like, this far deep into the psychology of humans and the organization and all this other stuff. Two two last questions for you. Number one, what do you look for in clients? Like,
Mm.
are you geographically based? Do you look for certain verticals? Is it mindset? Like, what does a great client look like to you?
I prefer to stay in Atlanta unless somebody lives in a place that, that I really want to go. But um, I I have multi generations of family here, and I prefer to stay here. Um, and Atlanta's big. There's a lot of businesses in Atlanta. So Atlanta, and I'm kind of at a place in my life where I like it when there's at least 20 or 25 employees already. I need something a little complex.
Yeah.
Um, Even if some of them are, contractors or whatever, but and then the mindset is really important. I am not a good fit for somebody whose sole purpose is to please their investors. I
Hmm.
don't know how many people like are really out there like that. I mean, that said, I have put the pedal to the metal and gotten a company into shape where it could sell for a huge multiple. Yeah, I get that. And they have to want to take care of their employees, their customers, and their community, or we're just not gonna mesh.
Yep. You're the second person that's talked about community in probably the last week
Mm.
with me. And for some reason, I feel like it's one of the often, like, people go out, they make money, they've got clients, they've got this, and they forget about the community in which they exist and like how to make an impact there. So I love that that's something on top of mind and on your checklist.
Yeah.
Last question. Someone just listened to this whole thing and they're like, I need Lynda to take a look at this. It's nothing but chaos. We've got 25 plus folks here, and there's a lot of complexity for Lynda to come through. What is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
I'm old school. I love phone calls. You might
Nice.
have to leave a voicemail, but I love phone calls. Or, of course, we have our EOS websites that are um, Lynda, Lynda. Although if you spell it wrong, you'll still get there because I made sure. But Lynda-Martin at eosworldwide.com. I think that's it. No, eosworldwide.com/Lynda.Martin. There you go.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
And
Got it.
email is the same, Lynda.Martin at eosworldwide.com.
Perfect. And we'll make sure we have all these in the show notes as well. Lynda, thank you so much. I can't believe how much time went by since the last time we talked.
Yeah.
And this conversation has just like re-energized me on all the stuff that we talked about before. So I appreciate you coming on, taking the time and sharing the enormous amount of wisdom that you've accumulated over the years.
Well, thank you. It's been really fun. You ask great questions.